Welcome to The Bold New Normal, the podcast where bold ideas meet transformative action. I'm your host, Lucy Quist, and I'm here to challenge mindsets, ignite conversations, and inspire you to create the future you deserve. A future where equity, opportunity, and prosperity are not just dreams but realities. So let's dive in and build the bold new normal together. Hi. It's great to be back with you with another podcast. And as I was thinking about today, I thought about a recent trip, only a few months old, that was very enlightening for me. And I thought I'd share. So in September of 2024, my family and I went to Portugal. I went with my husband and my kids. And the goal was to show our children Portugal because we had been to Portugal a long time ago and we'd really enjoyed being in Portugal. But I learned a lesson, a very important lesson that I didn't even anticipate would be a lesson from the trip that I thought I'd share. But anyway, before I get to the lesson, why would we want to show the children Portugal? So basically, in 2001, I had this great opportunity at work to raise my hand to solve a problem. I raised my hand and essentially I was working with a design team in my organization in the UK. Our manufacturing took place in Portugal, and anyone who knows a lot about design and manufacturing will tell you that sometimes the communication lines don't always don't join up. So I raised my hand. There was the possibility of going to Portugal. I thought that I could go on the basis of this role to be the go-between between the two teams and solve this problem. It took my boss a day or two to agree, but in the end, he said yes. And the plan was I would go and spend 6 months in Portugal. Now, bear in mind that this is a country where the only people I knew were my work colleagues. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anyone else, and I didn't know anywhere else but perhaps the factory where our company was based. So this is kind of the scene of my trip out to Portugal. And it turned out to be such a successful work experience that instead of 6 months, I spent 14 months. And the reason why it turned into 14 months was essentially me enjoying the work and my Portuguese boss giving me all this other work to do, and then we stayed and I kept going on, and at some point I had to make a call and make a decision as to whether I wanted to be there permanently or I wanted to come back to the UK. So then I decided to come back. So I came back after 14 months. So that's sort of the preamble of why I was in Portugal. I discovered all these people. I'd learned the language because I think it's really important to connect with people. And also, I really enjoyed the food and everything about it. Beautiful, sunny European country. So fast forward to over 20 years later, in 2024, September, I went over with my family. And the goal was really to show our children the sights, the sounds, the food, the nice places in Portugal. We went to Lisbon, to Simbra, Setúbal, which is where I lived. And I showed them the apartment building I used to live in. I described my everyday life to them. They met my old boss. They met some of my old colleagues. So it was really me sort of using that as an avenue to show them the country I thought that I had really enjoyed and I wanted them to experience and enjoy as well. What I hadn't anticipated was the fact that in that experience, I was actually introducing them to a much younger Lucy who was closer to their age. So what was interesting is that they found this person I was describing and this lifestyle I was describing and the opportunities to explore and get to know people that I was describing to them. They found that so relatable. And they asked me more questions than I had even anticipated. What it was like, driving off to the south by myself. What it was like trying to learn a language I didn't know. What was how risky did I feel the experience was. In fact, the big question they asked me, why didn't you just stay? This is such a beautiful place to stay. And I could see through their eyes that, living through that life of me at an age much closer to their age made them think about the choices and the decisions that they would make if they were in my position in that time. I hadn't anticipated this, but I was grateful for it because I had this opportunity, excuse me, to influence and impact my children in a world in a world of mine that predates them but was more relatable to them. And so there are a couple of lessons that I sort of walked away with as I reflected on the experience. I think the very first big lesson is that a lot of the time when we're thinking of being mentored or guided by someone, we try to think of the most senior or the seemingly most successful people that we can think of, and we want them to be the guide, we want them to be the mentor, we want them to be the coach. However, in reality, it can be that someone who's a few years ahead of us, so they're ahead and they have experience, but they're only a few years ahead of us, could actually be the better person to provide us with that guidance. They could be a much better fit because where they are in their journey is closer to where we are. And that's what I saw with my children. It's really important to be ambitious and have, really big goals. But at the same time, in the immediate term, you should have goals that are closer to you, 3 to 5 year range. And then when you're looking for people who can guide you on the 3 to 5 year range, they're people who have probably been through that journey very recently. They could give you relevant tips and insights, but very importantly, guidance. Because the kind of risk I thought I was taking back then, and that's my second point, you have to take some degree of risk, different from the kind of risk that I would take now. In fact, there's a high chance that I am less likely to do what I did over 2 decades ago because I have so many more considerations. But as that young woman, I thought, what's the risk? Okay, well, the real risk, there's no safety risk. It's a secure country. Yes, I don't speak the language, so communication at work might be a bit challenging, even though lots of my colleagues speak English. I would learn, right? You're a young person, you have time and energy, you learn. Food, maybe I won't be able to get food that I'm used to. It's fine. You explore, you get to know and get to enjoy other things. Career-wise, I think that being someone who explores and takes chances and takes risks is actually a good thing for careers. And sometimes people think they're going off the beaten path. So I've dealt with the risk aspect. I think the third thing I would say is that the exposure gave me a lot of growth. And it was a growth that I thought, when I started sharing about my life, I wanted them to think about it in more about the sort of the professional growth terms, even though they took it way beyond that. There's so much professional growth in stepping into a seemingly challenging situation that is outside of your comfort zone. And so you have to dig a whole lot deeper than you would have anticipated being able to dig in. If that's the best way to explain, it makes you think of stretching yourself because the situation calls for a stretch. So that's another lesson I'd share. And the final lesson I'd share is that you have to enjoy the journey. What made my time in Portugal so memorable, so livable, and so enjoyable that I wanted to take my family back years later, and I'd hankered to do that for a long time, was that I enjoyed living there. I didn't see it as drudgery. I wasn't counting down the clock. I lived in this place like I would, live fully and engaged fully. So whatever journey you're on, I would encourage you to enjoy the journey. Whatever stage you are in your career, in your life journey, whatever's going on with you, take the time to savor the journey. The journey, it's not only about getting to a destination, it's about savoring the experience. It's about relishing every new opportunity. Every time someone invited me home to their family, every time I got to go to another part of the country, every time I went to, a wedding or some family event, it was an opportunity to savor life in a completely different environment that I will never get that particular experience again, but I'm so glad that at the time that I could take it. It's really demonstrated to me the joys of being an explorative person, and I do think that I've infected my children with a little bit of that sort of joie de vivre of exploring the world. Those are a few nuggets from our time in Portugal, unexpected lessons that turned out to be great lessons and great reminders for me. As always, I would encourage you to take action from some of these examples, but take action and create your bold new normal. Thank you for tuning in to the Bold New Normal. I hope this episode has inspired you to think boldly and take action towards creating the future you envision. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs a dose of boldness today. Until next time, take action to create your bold new normal.